Perfect. Greta Van Fleet is the exact energy you need when kicking off a webinar like this. I'm really excited to about what I'm going to walk you through today, folks. Welcome once again. This is becoming a ritual. I'm extremely happy with the discipline with which we've been able to do this, and I take absolutely no credit for it. All of that credit goes to Harsh, our head of content, and he's just phenomenal because this is one of the key drivers of engagement for us with the list we've built with all of you all. And I'm so glad that and it's really interesting for me and motivating that there are so many people that are willing to listen to the stuff that I have to say every month, once a month, sometimes twice a month. So which gives me some confidence that everything that I talk about makes sense. Otherwise, I would just kind of ramble on about things like I often do and not kind of get that feedback. But I really thank you so much for the turnout that we have today. It's amazing. What we want to cover today is pricing. I promise there's a lot of insights here. We've essentially the reason we are doing this, the reason we want to talk about pricing strategies is everybody who's on the webinar, because every time we had a webinar, we had questions about shipping costs, how to kind of discount in the right way, and doing discounts so that you don't lose too much money. And we see that happening a lot with our customers. And there is just so much that eats into the margin that you have, that month after month after month, especially if you are less than a couple of $1 million in sales annually, you tend to kind of feel that, hey, you know what? I know this is how much profit I have left, but I imagined it to be higher. Why is it not the 100K revenue not translating into like a 30K or a 20K, depending on the kind of industry gross margin that you operate at? And so we felt that we should talk about pricing. I have content or stuff to walk you through. I added a few things just before this. This is why you always do documents so that we can keep adding ideas till the very end. Um, uh, so again, I've added a couple of things just just 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago. But the fundamental reason, again, that I felt pricing also will be extremely important is, when I was, doing my, when I was kind of passing out from business school, we were taught the 4 P's of marketing. Those used to be 4. Now there are 7, even 9 P's of marketing, right? So there is price, place, promotion, process, product, people, physical evidence, and so there's just so much that goes into running a tight ship, a tight business ship, that is. And when we see how this kind of pans out and what works and doesn't work and so on, price kind of sits on the top, because you can go wrong and still survive if you go wrong with something like promotion, right? So your copy might not have worked, your audience might not have worked. Naturally, product is and price are the two things that are, you could say, fatal if you get it wrong. And to correct it will always cause more pain, because if you were selling at a high price earlier and you felt it's too high for your customers, you want to bring it down, it hurts the brand. If you were selling at a low price earlier and you feel your margins don't work out and you want to increase the price, that's even harder. You can always launch a higher price product first and then launch a lower price product later, but doing the other way around is very hard. It's similar to how Ford cannot sell a luxury car, right? It cannot. It's going to be extremely hard for them to position and make people. It's similar to actually Lexus. Although people know Lexus for their reliability, wrong, but at the back of your mind, Toyota is the brand that sells Lexus, and if you were to walk into a dealership today, you would easily get a 20% on the sticker price and walk away with a reliable car, but it won't be one of those things. So that's also why Elon Musk, for example, with Tesla, they always, in fact, that's true for all electric car makers, the ones that are smart. They all launch an extremely high priced product first, and then they launch everything else. The whole reason behind that is higher priced products are higher margin. A company that is innovating needs a lot of money to go into R&D, and they need that margin because there has to be margin for error. We have an electric scooter company that has their office very close to where I live. And I remember, very recently the founder telling a group of people which I was a part of that it's called Arthur. And what they said is that when they launched their first scooter, it cost them twice of what they were selling it for to make. So that's insane, right? Because they wanted to kind of capture market and do that. But it sounds incredible to me, given that we as e-commerce business owners, at the end of the day, are running a completely different business. So jumping right in, three parts. I'm open to taking questions. You can either put them in the chat and pick everyone when you do that, or there's a Q&A section. So I'll take questions at that time. I hope my audio is good. If you have any trouble, please put it in the chat. I'll run through points fairly fast because there's a lot that's obvious and there are a few very interesting nuggets I want to go to as quickly as possible. But the intention is to make sure that you have something that you can just walk away with. Jumping right in. Let's first kind of get some unconventional stuff out of the way. I think generally when I see people optimizing conversions, this is what they're doing. They're sitting with the designer and asking them to move things around the website, right? So today we're not going to talk about any of that. We'll just focus on pricing, discounting, and related stuff. And I'll try to give you all the insights that we have after working with thousands of e-commerce businesses. I've personally seen, I think, more than 1,000 Google Analytics accounts. So you can trust me that almost everything that I'm speaking is not scripted. It's coming straight out of my own mind from my own experience. So I have confidence that I'll be able to add value. Okay, let's jump in. One of the interesting things that I see businesses do a lot is they don't want to discount um, they don't want to discount their lower priced products. And that's counterintuitive because there's hours and hours of research available on the internet that tells you that the moment you discount your high ticket items, demand will shift to low ticket items because um, uh, they start to get attention. You're bringing a premium product closer to a not so premium product. Whereas if you discount your lower price items more, the demand for your overall products remains the same. So you've got to think about the products that you're discounting on the website and how does that shift demand between products. If you are making 1,000 transactions a month, I don't think businesses track how transactions shifted from one product to another because of running a discount or a clearance sale or something like that. We normally just do it and we think, hey, you know what? Easter is coming up or some festival is coming up or back to school, for example, will come up in some time and we just want to kind of go all out. I think if you can just go back to your data on whenever you ran a sale the last time, you will see how demand was shifting between products when you were discounting. If you can think about, this could be different for you. The behavior could be different. For example, there's a type of product called Veblen goods. It's pretty famous now. The Rolls-Royce, for example, vehicles are called Veblen products. It's a concept in economics where as the price of the product goes up, the demand also goes up. So Rolls-Royce is, they're suffering from success, as they say. So they're a Veblen product. I think I'm confident. I've seen the list of people that have registered, although it was a big list. So I haven't seen every website, but I'm confident we don't have a lot of Veblen products here. The other interesting thing is always place a higher value product on the left of the site. This is a very, very basic sort of almost stupid advice, but it works because you're setting expectation, right? Imagine if I was sitting on this webinar right now, wearing a suit. Your expectation from the webinar would be completely different. The content that I'm going to walk you through. My intention with how we do webinars, for example, is to kind of keep it as candid and as conversational as possible. But the intention of saying this is, generally speaking, people are always consuming content from left to right. And you want to set the expectation first, and then everything seems cheaper after that. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Amazon does this really, really well. They have this across most categories. So I would recommend you to check this out. It's a really simple hack. Also, this is one I just skip through, but because I feel it's a hit or miss. It depends on the kind of brand you're building. but generally speaking, a smaller font. Um, you know, this is all psychological research, so this is not something we have experimented with a lot, but we've seen this across different brands. We've worked with luxury handbag makers. Actually, as a matter of fact, I recommend you to check out all of the massive luxury brands that you know, if they have online shops. Check out Bulgaris and Chanel's of the world, and you will see the smallest font they have is for the price always. Something very, very simple. I'll just skip through this. We have some more interesting advice kind of. Now we'll go to some proven strategies on how you could do discounting in a way that it boosts conversions without having to lose kind of a lot of money. So here is generally one of the things that goes wrong with tiered discounting or discounting in general is that customers assume it will stay forever, right? So when we're running a sale, we often run a timer. But for example, there's a website called slickwraps.com. They do wrapping, these skins for your laptop or your mobile. If you open it right now, they'll be running a timer. So they've been running that timer for 5 years. I've seen them for 5 years now. They've had a timer on the site forever, and it's kind of that completely destroys the urgency that the timer essentially creates, and your customers is taken for granted. So in this example, for example, you are case in point, I think you are limiting the discount to just a day, and you are kind of declaring it and making it clear that this discount ends Thursday, and then after that discounts get tiered down, and that's how it's going to work. And it's important that you keep it that way. Don't let your discounts become commodity, because then they'll not be as exciting. They'll not be as interesting. That's the reason why why sometimes Black Friday, increasingly retailers have tried to go over the board with discounting. They have always now have to, when they have to do Black Friday sales, they have to go overboard with discounting at least 2 or 3 products, and they look at that as acquisition costs, because Black Friday became this period of the year where it was assumed that prices will be lower, but also only on the products that are previous generation, which is also true for the rest of the year. So if you go to Best Buy and you're trying to buy a set of headphones and you try to do it on Black Friday, it's possible that you find that deal at some other time during the year. So it's extremely important that you kind of look at your discounts in a more serious way. You can also, create value-based. So in this case, for example, there's so much happening here. Depending on how much money you're spending, your discount goes up. Also, there is a timer that's running. So I think I'm going to show you a lot of examples. Some of this will fit for your brand. Some of it will not. What I can also tell you is if these timers and pop-ups and all of this irritates you as a customer, it irritates everybody. That's true. But you have to be smart in the way you execute it, because that's where aesthetics matter, right? I showed you that GIF where this person is standing with the designer and is trying to edit the website and trying to get the conversion rate to go up. It's not the aesthetics that will make it happen for you. Aesthetics will help you look better and be perceived as a larger brand. And I'm going to talk a lot about that as we keep going. But it's the price and the product and the pitch that will help you drive conversion. So discounting is a part of the price, and that's why I'm emphasizing so much on it. You can also, club free shipping into those value-based tiers. So if you buy this, if you buy that, if you do $100 or more, there's free shipping. Free shipping is by far one of the most interesting benefits you can give to your customers. The number one reason is, believe it or not, you are competing with Amazon, right? You are competing essentially each time you are expecting somebody to buy something from you, you are motivating them to trust you with a purchase and also make a transaction which is not the normal behavior. For example, how much time do you take to decide to buy something on Amazon? Relevant to the country you're from, I know we have people from all over the place, but the Amazon equivalent in your case versus when you're buying it from a white label Shopify store, it's almost 3 times, because it's taking you that much time to finally decide if you really want to go for it, because you've done it far too many times and it has worked half the time, right? So there's too much drop shipping. There's so much happening. So which is why, it's important that free shipping stays on top of our conversation today. I'm going to talk a lot about that as we keep going, but adding it as a tier-based discount would work out. I have an entire section purely talking about free shipping, so just wait for that. This is another really obvious one. The price for 2 is less than the price for what it would be for each in the case of one, and then three is even less. So this is something really obvious. We've all seen this. But I am surprised how many people don't do it. I've given this example before in a webinar as well, where we were working with a footwear brand and they were trying to drive their conversion rate. And the insight that came out was that instead of driving conversions, they should actually drive order value. And the way they did that is very interesting. They figured that about 60 to 70% of their visitors were men because their advertising pointed towards men was working drastically better than all of the advertising they were doing towards, kind of targeted towards women. So what they did is, which is really smart, is they encouraged the men to also buy a gift for their loved one on the way out. And then they did a bundling and they did a club discount. What that did is it doubled their average order value, because if you're buying, and they were, I don't know if you know about the brand called Atoms. I'm not talking about Atoms here, but the product is very similar. Very commoditized, simple looking shoe, one of those Japanese style of shoes which you can quickly kind of pick up for your wife and you'll not be worried about how it fits and all those things. Kind of a slipper. So there is a lot of value in finding, if you want to first, do you want to solve the problem of volume, or do you want to solve the problem of transactions? What is it? In this case, what they're trying to do. In this case, customers are buying their coffee. The whole idea of this is a fresh roast, but can they buy double the volume if we give it to them in a sealed, kind of airtight bag, kind of make that pitch very clear. Also offer a threshold. So first discounts is something that I think we all lose a lot of money on. Here's a $10 off or a 10% off or a 30% off if you give us your email, and then you kind of go through that journey. But too much money is lost in this. The other thing that this does is all of these discount scouting sites come and take your coupon code and then list it somewhere. So often people are using this coupon and it's kind of listed on Honey or one of those apps which can just give you the discount away. It's thoughtful to use this wisely and kind of not let people game it, but also have a threshold. In this case, only if you order for $100 is when you get a 25% off. So it's a huge discount. It's a significant incentive to go that far. But also you have to have a collection of products that can take the customer there. So it has to be reasonable. I'll allow you to do that math on your own and kind of figure it out. Subscriptions is and I'll talk about that as we keep going. I'll just say something really simple about subscriptions. I think while we're all entrepreneurs and we're running a store, we are also consumers. So here's a simple statement I want to make about subscriptions. First is, of course, if you're not a product, like we work with a business that does kitchen countertops. So people are buying from them once in 10 years. So there is no case for repeat purchases. But for everybody else, if your customer can buy your product even twice in a year, you have to consider this. And if it's something like a fashion or something like that, then of course there is no way to subscribe to a shirt. That's not going to work out. But here is a statement I wanted to make about subscriptions. If your customer buys from you once and you're only allowing them to do that, then the responsibility of reminding the customer to buy again, and this is a very capitalistic statement, but the responsibility of reminding the customer to buy again is yours. As an entrepreneur, it's you are going to kind of hit them with emails and SMS and find a way to convince them to buy again. But if the customer subscribes, then the responsibility of forgetting to purchase is the customers, isn't it? It's up to them to cancel it. It's up to them, because then the rest of it is automated. The card gets charged, the shipping goes out, the whole thing is kind of. There are many subscription-related payment apps available which are dirt cheap. There is one called Loop Subscriptions. They're based out of Gurgaon, Delhi, India. Fantastic team, great product. Highly recommend them. I know the founder myself, and I just think that that's one easy way. But there are many others. There's no, there's no incentive in me recommending them. There's Recharge. There's a lot of them, so you could use any of them. But the point is, consider if you can do subscription for any of the products that you sell. Also, making your prices specific makes them look real, and it also kind of you're engaging the customer. If you're sending anything which is configurable, for example, or if there is a case for them to get a tiered pricing. So, for example, sometimes if you can articulate what your price is made up of, if you're selling a $50 or $100 or maybe a $500 product, what goes in it, all of the things that are included. Like Apple, when they were selling, when cell phone buying experience used to be mind blowing. I don't remember. I don't know if you all remember the Nokia era. I remember we bought a Nokia N90 phone. It used to open. It was a clamshell which used to turn around and you could do a bunch of things. That phone box came with the phone itself, a set of headphones, a set of headset. It came with three types of wires. It had a cover for the phone. It had so much. So when I'm paying, $500 for a phone like that, it also lists behind the box everything that I'm getting. And I feel like, oh, this is an amazing deal. So is there a case for you to do that, to justify your price a little bit better? It would go a long way. The other thing here, I think some obvious ideas, of course, are buy one item and then the second one is going to have a discount. That way you're not losing money on the one purchase that you get. And also the customer has a incentive on picking up the second one. You would see this in supermarkets a lot, right? Those juice or, some of those beverages where if you buy three bottles together, you kind of get a discount. So I'll talk about that as we keep going this. This again is interesting. It's a very, very obvious way, but I have a split opinion on this, to be honest. But it's a bundle. It's $48, but the value is $61. It's very easy to do something like this if you're selling a bundle. By the way, sell a bundle. Find a way to bundle your products with something. Bundles work really well. It gives the customer a feeling of making a complete purchase. We were out buying actually, interestingly, my wife has a conference that she's supposed to be in next week, and I wanted to, she wanted my help pick something for because she's speaking there. And we were out to buy some stuff, and we saw a jacket, but then we didn't like the trousers, and then went to another place. We saw pants, but we didn't like the jackets. You see, so we were kind of making these broken purchases, and none of those stores got conversions. So nobody kind of got the bundle right. If you can bundle, it is beautiful. It's the easiest way to convince a customer that there's a complete value prop that they're kind of buying into. But in this case, you're buying a $48 product, you're getting $61 in value. I'll give you an example. I don't know. I did see that Chuck had registered for this webinar. I don't know if he's joined us yet. But Chuck runs a store called Mission Mercantile. They have fantastic bags, leather bags, which are handmade. And they have a lifetime handshake, which means that if ever anything happens to the bag, which is, the stitching comes apart, or if something breaks, they will just straight away either repair it for you or replace the bag for you, no questions asked. He called it the mythical customer service, right? So that's a phenomenal value prop. Those bags are expensive. They're $400, $500, $600 bags. They have cheaper options as well. But interestingly, if you bought that bag once, you are essentially not going to buy a bag for the next 20 years or maybe 10 years. So the value there is insane. It's incredible. Versus a Samsonite, which in 3 years is going to lose its shape because you're going to throw it around like you don't care for it. Either way, perceived value has a lot of hidden meaning. As a matter of fact, I'll just, ConvertCart, being a SaaS company, also uses this. So when our sales team is talking to people, we never, we get most frequently asked question is, hey, for your conversion optimization service, how do you charge? And the answer is never, hey, this is what we will charge for your traffic level. And, the pricing has a few components. It's built on the amount of traffic you're getting. So if you're bigger, you pay more. If you're smaller, you pay less. And the answer is always, our pricing includes everything. It includes the platform that has all of these features that will help you optimize for conversions. It has experimentation, it has search, and it will come with a team of experts that are going to help you run the show. So there is an entire spiel before for all of this, all we charge is this much per month. And that's it. So that's the whole intention of doing that, is to have the perceived value sit out front, and that's when you kind of go to the next step. Profit margin. I think this is the number one problem that plagues e-commerce today. At the end of the day, we sometimes forget that the fundamental flywheel that some of our businesses, most of our e-commerce businesses run on, is plowing a part of the profit back into acquisition of customers. That's really the business we are in. We spend some money, run ads, bring customers, they buy our products, the profit goes back into acquiring customers, and then that cycle continues. So the only way to grow this business incrementally, there are only two ways to do it. Number one is if you can acquire customers for free. I'll tell you how to do that. And the second is that you plow more and more money into acquiring customers through, which is by improving your profit or even marginally improving it every year or every 6 months. That's also why businesses are rewarded for increasing profit margins or when compared with increasing revenues if they're listed on the Wall Street. Generally speaking, if your profit margin goes up by 3%, that's rewarded significantly more in the way of a stock price boost compared to your kind of revenue going up by 3%. The other way is acquiring customers for free, which is impossible, which is the only way to do that is if you become a social media influencer yourself and kind of do that. Or you can acquire customers, just make your existing customers buy more from you. So that's the other way of kind of improving it. But jumping into some of the advice here, bestsellers are the most basic advice. I think I'll quickly go through this. One of the things that I've seen people do is they promote their bestsellers, but they don't do it properly. They probably do it for a certain amount of time. They're using an app to do it that isn't doing it well enough. So there are too many broken parts. Put it front and center. 80% of your revenue comes from 10-20% of your products. Pareto principle applies everywhere. So, I would just say stop trying to sell those 5 products that you really wish people bought. It doesn't matter what you wish. People like something that you're selling. Double down on it and just go all out with acquiring customers for it and repeat business for those products. Upgrades work, really, really well. How can you make sure that your product specifications, the stuff that's going in, that itself should feel like an upgrade, and can you also kind of show them 2 alternatives and kind of take it to the next level. So that's gonna really fly extremely well. Subscriptions, I think I've already spoken about it. I've also spoken about the logic behind it. The reason that this one kind of stands out is it's a combination of 2 things that I've already spoken about, which is bundling as well as subscription. Extremely hard to pull off, but if you were to make this happen, it would instantly help you with customer lifetime value. And I'm going to go to customer lifetime value in just a minute. Improving brand perception. So let's talk about brand for a second. That's one of the other things that I see businesses do a lot. If you look at any one of those really repetitive and exactly same videos on YouTube where a kid is trying to teach you dropshipping, I'm sure everybody's seen those videos at least once. There's one thing that's common across all of those videos, and that is go and hire someone who can build you a landing page. But unfortunately, I don't see working e-commerce businesses investing money in creating really convincing product pages, adding entire sections into your product page that convince the customer that your brand is worth the time, the product is worth the money, and essentially shrinking the price. That's what I generally call it. That's completely and entirely coined by me. There is no science behind this term. But what I essentially like to call it is shrinking the price. Make the price look small with every second that somebody spends with you. How can you make sure you do that? Because in a lot of cases, what we generally see is there is an assumption that customers are convinced that they want to buy from you, and it's fatal. You have to go out of it. Because if you're adding extra information and people don't go through it, that's okay. But if you're not adding information, it's a crime. So I would just request you to kind of go all out and find a way to convince customer. In this case, there's so much that's going in. All of the ingredients, why does it work? How many people trust it? There's a specific point about trust later on, but it goes a long way if you can talk about your brand. And I'll actually give you a few suggestions on how you can do that in the most easy way. The number one easiest way of building a brand is telling your story, right? If you're selling something that's irrespective of what you're selling, there are 2-3 things that can easily help you tell a story. The first and the most interesting one is the origin of your product. It could be the quality of cloth you use, the people that build the product, the region that it's built in, the way that it is packaged, and the way that it reaches the customer. So it could be world-class linen made in the USA by army veterans and there's a 20% off for people who are associated with the military. There's so many ways in which you can connect that story together for depending on the kind of product that you're selling. And that's something that I feel is overlooked. So I would want to take a step back, look at your product hard and for a decent amount of time and find a story inside it. I'm sure it's there. If it's not there, reply to the email that I sent to you after this webinar. I'm happy to help you find that story. Just send the product to me and just here's my product. Do you think there's a story I can tell? I'll just do it as a mental exercise. I would love to kind of take a look at it. Bundling ideas. So the more bundling ideas, the better. So in this case, for example, there's so much happening. There's a bars pack, there's a kickstart bundle, there's a starter bundle, there's a variety pack. So there are a bunch of ways in which bundling is working. I don't want to talk about bundling anymore. I've already stressed out enough. But I just did the intention of putting this here was so that you also start thinking about bundling in more than one way. Can you give them more than one reasons to buy? So I think it says more buying options. I would call it more buying reasons. And the reason I say that is sometimes your customers need that extra reason, extra kind of call. I'll give you actually the most amazing example. The most selling chocolate for example, in India, because that's where I come from, that's where I am. The most selling chocolate is a Cadbury Dairy Milk. And for the longest time, Cadbury Dairy Milk was marketed for its amazing taste. They used to do that for the longest time. And then slowly people started to realize that chocolates are unhealthy. That's not the natural form of sweet for the country. There are a ton of amazing examples of desserts that you can have which are indigenous, and you would be mind blown with how good they are. So I don't want to kind of brag about it, but I welcome you to try some of them and I can give you recommendations. But generally speaking, what Cadbury did instead is it completely transformed their advertising once they realized what people are thinking to gifting chocolates to others. So all of their advertising was gifting a chocolate to your teacher, gifting a chocolate to your friend, giving it to your parent or your mother for Mother's Day, doing it for Diwali, doing it for Christmas, and all of those things. So that completely changed the reasons people were, or the way in which people think of chocolate. So in this case, I can buy this seeded bread for myself, or I can just gift it to someone, and I'm prepaying for 3 shipments. It's actually a really thoughtful gift to think of it, that I get 3 shipments once a month for something that I didn't really sign up for. The other thing you're doing is you're seeding the person who is essentially getting those shipments to come back and subscribe because now you've already formed a habit. It's a really interesting idea, isn't it? Promoting add-ons, really obvious, easiest way to drive average order value. Focus on, in this case, for example, these add-ons are very interesting. The product they are selling, there is a assembly plan, and then there is a protection plan. I would want you to just Google actuarial science, right? Actuarial, these are people that essentially create business models and pricing for insurance companies. So they tell insurance companies how much they should price the insurance so that if 100 insurance plans are sold and 3 people fall sick, they still make their margins after paying the bills for those 3 people. That will essentially tell you how much you can charge for a guarantee or a warranty on top of your product if you want to charge for it. How much would it cost for you to replenish products in case people were to claim that guarantee? What percentage of people actually ask you to claim that guarantee? And then you have a business there as well. So something to think about. Loyalty, there's tons of apps available on the app store for depending on the platform you're on. If you're on a custom platform or something like that, it's important to kind of consider hiring someone to do this. But if you're a business that can thrive on this, I would allow you to kind of think about it. But I would definitely strongly recommend a loyalty or a rewards app or a system on your website so that your most frequent or repeat customers have something they get in return for being so loyal to you. Trust I'll just tell you straight away. It's the single biggest reason people will convert. apart from the fundamentals of the product being right or the price being right. But if you want to just justify your price, and there is no bigger trust or social proof than real actual people saying that they like your product. So this is also a solid user generated content opportunity. Reward your customers to give you great reviews, send you pictures using the product, post it on Instagram. Sometimes too much people don't do that generally, but ask them to send you the picture of them using their product, their dog sleeping on the dog bed you're selling, or something on those lines. And put all of that on the website. That's going to go a really, really long way justifying the price that you're selling something at. This is another interesting one. Pre-orders. Pre-orders is something I've seen businesses kind of overlook. When you're launching a product, you don't really need to launch a product and then send an email saying that it's launched. You can actually experiment, right? If you feel you have a base of customers, an email list of anything above 20,000 that has opted in to hear from you, if you are someone who's already investing that effort in making it happen for yourself, it would actually add a lot of value if you can pre-launch products, see the kind of demand you get for them, acquire stock in that way, and also try and discount and see what price people are willing to pay for it. I think it's an underrated strategy. If used well, it can go a long way. And now a couple of the ideas that I added just 10 minutes before the webinar started. The first is customer lifetime value based discounting. We often come up with discounts on the basis of the first transaction, which means if your customers are likely to buy from you 4 times in a year or 3 times in a year, you can look at the data for the last 3 years and determine that. That means, and your product is $100. That means they're going to spend $300 with you in the first year. Assuming your gross margin is 40%, you have about $120 in margin from that $300 customer. Now, that means how much money are you willing to spend to acquire that $300 customer? That's the way to think of it. Normally, how businesses think of it is I'm acquiring a $100 customer because that's the first transaction value. I'm going to make $40 on it, and I can only give $10 off to acquire that customer. But essentially, what you were acquiring was $120 of profits over a period of a year. I hope I'm making sense. Please ask me questions if I'm not. I know this can probably there could become a communication gap in the way maybe I'm not as clear as you would like for me to be, but I hope this makes sense. Look at your customer lifetime value. Is there a case for you to discount even more for acquiring a customer because it would be worth the while? Because that customer is likely to have a 50% chance of buying thrice a year, and you could kind of work on the math, and an Excel sheet can help you. The other thing is there are tons of apps, tons of software available that can help you price match. If this is relevant to your business, I strongly recommend it. There are also apps available that are actually really expensive. So I recommend that for businesses above $2 or $3 million a year in revenue. But generally what I recommend is they also go and edit your price. So you can set a price range of say $60 to $70 is where you want to sell it. Depending on what price the rest of the internet is selling it at, it would automatically adjust your price and find you the best mix of conversions and margins. And I think it's pretty smart. I would use it if I was a large store. I'm going to speed up in interest of time because I want to take as many questions as possible. Free shipping is a huge differentiator. The reason that's true is also because it's also one of the biggest reasons people don't buy directly from Shopify stores and so on and so forth. Because somebody has to pay for that. The shipping is not free, fundamentally speaking. There's somebody skateboarding through New York City, delivering your packaging, and somebody has to pay for that. So either the customer pays or you pay. If you have to pay for it, it has to be worth its while. It has to be, you have to kind of make enough money to pay for it. If the customer pays for it, they have to be convinced and they have to love the product for them to kind of pay for shipping. The first simplest idea is make them buy more and make sure that they kind of, I'm going to repeat this 3 times in 3 different ways because I have 3 different examples of it. In this case, it's the same product you're selling, higher volume. So if you buy a 5-pack, you get a 20% off or free shipping in general. If you are a product that sells, that involves things like freight, etc., one of the things you can do is articulate what goes into the shipping. For example, we have a lot of jewelry customers. that obviously have to ask, charge for shipping. But then we add a lot of messaging inside of that shipping cost to make it worth it. For example, we extra secure, it's not going to break, bubble wrap, this, that. So this articulate how you're going to ship it. The other way of making sure shipping is worth the customer's while is by making it environment friendly. You would not, and I know that this is true for me, I'm sure it's true for all of us on the call, most of us on the call, rather. We will pay a couple of dollars extra. We will pay a certain percentage extra if something was environment friendly. We've all, the paper straws, as horrible as they taste, they have less guilt associated with them. And there is some psychological guilt associated with a single-use plastic straw. There is. You cannot beat it. Even if you're somebody who's anti that, you would still have at least 2%. At least that thought would cross your mind saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to use this plastic straw, but I know it's going to land up at a landfill or it's going to land up in the sea. So my recommendation is, can you make your shipping 50% environment friendly, 60%, not entirely, but at least a part of it environment friendly? Mention that, saying, hey, you know what, our shipping is $10, but 100% environment friendly packaging. It would add more value to the money you're expecting people to pay. In this case, you're again nudging shoppers to add more products. You're just doing this whole thing in the cart. In addition to that, you can also encourage them to buy more case. In this case, it's a fast moving product, so you can kind of ask them to stock up in a big way, similar to the first example that I shared. In this case, again, I will connect this to the rewards and the membership option that I spoke about earlier. If you can get that going, you can get this going as well. So you can obviously offer free shipping to members or allow them to, kind of pay shipping for the first transaction. And then if they become a member with the first one, they don't end up paying shipping for the next one. I think that's what I want to talk about the next. The other thing is, instead of giving that $10 or $20 off on the first order and then collecting emails from your customers, it's significantly better if you exchange it for free shipping. We've seen this working really well in a couple of A/B tests that we've done, that the customer, instead of giving them a $10 or $20 off, we gave them a free shipping. And the chances of them actually using that coupon and transacting was a lot higher. The other thing is tying free shipping with peak selling days. This essentially ensures that your top line offsets any shipping related trouble. If you are doing free shipping on the 5 orders you get on a Tuesday, it's not worth the while because your top line is not where it needs to be. So your gross margin for the day is not at the level that it needs to be. Whereas, on any other day, on a sale day, for example, you're going to sell $20,000 worth of product or $10,000 worth of product, and in a few hours, and you're going to make $2,000 or $3,000 in gross margin on that. So if you lose $300 on free shipping or shipping related discounts, that's fine. You can afford it because it's worth it. You're also boosting your conversion rate in exchange for free shipping. Generally speaking, I also want to leave this thought with everyone. I've seen businesses going too far with free shipping, that sometimes businesses run free shipping and they've lost money on it in the hopes that transactions will skyrocket. It doesn't happen. If your product is good enough, people should be willing to pay a small amount for shipping. There's an interesting way in which you can test it out, which is the previous idea that I gave you, is that run it for a day, lose money for a day, see if it actually helps you, or maybe a week. See if it actually helps you and then backtrack on it. It's completely fine, depending on the kind of traffic you're getting, might make a difference to your customers. Repeat sales, I've already spoken about it, where you could offer free shipping on the next purchase. You could also, so this is another A/B test that we had run for a business that's a magazine site. And in their case, we saw a very high cart abandonment. So we said, hey, everybody who has a cart value of more than $20 and is abandoning the cart, so that came down to some 800 people a month that were abandoning the cart, which also had a high value cart for that business. We will offer them a 50% off on shipping. So the moment they were exiting with an exit intent pop-up, we offered them 50% off on shipping alone. And we were able to recover a lot of those abandoned carts. But generally speaking, even if we recovered 10% of them, which is about out of the 800 abandonments, 80 recoveries and $30 per card. We were doing a solid job of bringing in some cash for them, and they were happy to pay for half of the shipping for those customers because at least they were getting the customer. And then you can also make it location specific by, I mean, again, there is some development or app related effort that might go into making something like this happen. But that kind of, again, it makes more sense for you to at least charge the customer on the basis of actuals. I know a lot of us use shipping provider integrations to come up with a price for the customer. But there's still a strong case by doing this. You are also making it highly transparent so that the customer knows that it's not like flat shipping and the company is not making money on shipping. We used to work with a business which shut down later on post-COVID because of cash-related issues. But they were a $0 site. So they were one of those drop shipping stores, which was all the products was $1 or $0. And you can add it to the cart and shipping was $10. So everything was basically, being brought in from China, and they had these really interesting kids' toys, and they were just selling everything for $1. So yeah, this is what I wanted to cover today. I don't know if you've but I'm slightly lower energy today, but generally speaking, the intention was to focus on pricing. Some of the key takeaways being make the price smaller for your customers, make it worth their while, pitch extremely well, spend time on calculating your customer's lifetime value, focus on acquiring customers with the right cost. Also, don't force people into buying because huge discounts, you're sometimes acquiring customers that have a very low intent. So you have a lot of what we call RTO, return to origin. You have a lot of returns because they were just trying it out, and you have a very lenient return policy. So you have too much return because you discount it too heavily in order to acquire customers. So you have to find the right balance. And the answer almost always is in the data. So yeah, I'm open to questions. We have another 9 minutes. I'm glad I was able to finish at least to some level, but I'm open to questions. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. I think, Chuck, I just saw you join. Welcome to another webinar. Interestingly, I actually gave an example for Mission Mercantile recently. So I hope somebody from the webinar today comes and buys one of your products. You already know I'm a fan, but yeah. Okay, so I have a few questions already. Do you have any tips on trying out different prices? For example, I put out an ad for earrings 22, 27, 30 and found 27 got clicked more often. So, generally speaking, if you see odd numbers are better. Okay, this is a really psychological. I've run so many ads that I generally know that odd numbers are very, odd numbers are more convincing for people. So that's probably why 27 worked for you. But please do that. It's extremely important to experiment with you. If you are selling a product where you are at the luxury to experiment with price, why not? Most people are not. Their gross margins are so thin because they already know a similar product or a similar. We work with a company that used to sell baby carriers, which were really expensive. And they knew they were at the top of it, but they were making it in a handmade way with linen, and there was all kinds of stuff going into the product. So they were not at the liberty to try out a lower price. They said, if we were to experiment, we will only experiment with a higher price. One of the things that we do when we launch a new product, one of the things we really do when we launch a new product is we give it to customers and we ask them what they would want to pay for it. Maybe that's another way for you to find out how you could do that. Yes, so odd numbers don't convert better. They are more trustworthy. When I say, hey, you know what, I went to the park 2 times, versus when I say, hey, I think I've been to the park 5 times this week, chances are you'll trust me in the second one. So they're more trustworthy. Chuck says, I think Chuck, don't forget to pick everyone when you're typing. But he says we end all our pricing in 5s and 9s. See, that's proof from a very successful e-commerce entrepreneur. Then is that true that customers perceive prices without zeros as less expensive? I don't have the psychological research on that, but it is possible. Font is definitely one of those factors, but that's something to kind of think about. I run too many problems with discounts and Facebook and Instagram shops. Any tips for dealing with that? Is there a way to turn off discounts being auto-applied to FB shops? I will have to take a look at why that happens. It's really odd. Generally, they pick up information from from your store and the information that's available to the. So either this is a shop feed integration issue, which means that the product feed that's going to FB shops has some wrong information, or it's something else. So could be something. So I think I can't answer that without looking at the data. All right. So any formula, what threshold to offer free shipping based on AOV? I offer free shipping when spending over $50. So this is an interesting question. I think this is a good advice to us. We will probably do this math and maybe create a calculator and launch it. The factor to look at is actually gross margin. Please do a gross margin calculation of your product, and then also plot that across scale, which means if you sell 100 versus 200 versus 400, does that gross margin scale because of economies of scale? That will give you how much money you can give away to customers for free if you were to acquire them. So that's the right way to find that answer. How many times is too many? How many times is too many discount? How to measure the number of days for this? I don't fully understand. I think this is an anonymous question as well. I don't fully understand the question, but I'm guessing how long should the discount be run is the question, because I earlier recommended don't keep running your discounts forever. They lose meaning. They are for your customers that are tracking your emails. As a matter of fact, to be completely transparent with everyone here, I don't think, since after being in e-commerce, I don't think if it's not there are four types of purchases, right? So there's urgent purchases or emergency purchases, which are out of your control. So medical bills, that kind of stuff. There is daily needs, so stuff like groceries, etc., which you have. Then there is planned purchases, so stuff like, hey, I want to make that trip and kind of do that. And there are impulse purchases, which is stuff that you don't plan and you do them just because you want to. So there are four types of buying. Interestingly, your customers are depending on the kind of category you fall in, your customers are watching the emails you send to them. Right? They know you run a 50% off every few months. It's not hard for them to figure that out. Smart ones actually do. And your customers are smart. But let's never assume our customers are not smart. We never assume that. So generally speaking, for me, I actually tend to, for stuff that I know is discretionary, it's just extra stuff. It's like a bag or something like that, which I don't need. It's a want. It's not a need. It's a want. I almost always abandon the cart before I buy. Almost always. Because I know within a day of abandoning the cart, I'll be buying that same product for half the price in some cases, or at least 20% lower or 30% lower. So there goes, it's something that of all people, e-commerce people should actually gain that the most. Either way. So that's the answer. There is no real answer for it. I would recommend you look at the kind of product you're selling and then see how seriously customers will probably take discounts. Yeah, I think a calculator to calculate best cart value to offer free shipping based on gross margin. I think there might be some maths we can do there. So Amanda, we'll work on that and we'll find a way to calculate it. Quick question. There's an extensive usability research done that shows that bigger price font size, the better. And that's been our experience over the years as well. Of course, it depends on the niche and product market. Both small prices and large prices work better. What in our experience in determining which one to use, which one? The only answer for these questions is an A/B test. That's the only answer. I also categorically mentioned that it's a very, very, would say, the psychological evidence behind it is very, very hazy. About 95% of the research that's done on these kind of opinions is backed by private entities. That's why if you Google, is Diet Coke good for me? It says it's actually harmless. It doesn't do anything. It's absolutely fine. Have Diet Coke. Whereas we all know that if it's sweet and it's not sugar, it's basically chemical. So I don't know how far one could trust this research, which is why first principles come in handy. And the best way to kind of get an answer is to do your own test and kind of figure it out. Chuck is right. He says experiment, experiment, experiment. Your business is at the end of the day a lab. That's true. Any other questions, folks? There's a question about recording. Yes, we will be recording this. In fact, all of the webinars I've ever had are now on our website. You can just go there, sign up, and view them for free. And there's a lot of good stuff there. And we've put them unedited. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Folks, thanks so much for joining us again. I am glad that we are able to have this turnout month after month, couple of weeks after couple of weeks. And we're able to come up with stuff that's meaningful, to talk about. We are open to recommendations on what we should talk about next. So please feel free to reply to my email and let me know about that, problems that you feel we could talk about. But yeah, thanks so much. I hope the information was useful and it helps you drive, sales, conversions, and add more value to the world. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you. Thanks, Alex, Amanda, Chuck.